with the NATO summit. Now, later in the programme, we're also going to be covering health issues with Debbie, and also Alex is going to have an update on what's going on in the Netherlands with the Dutch farmers and so on. But here's Biden and Jens Stoltenberg, the newly reinstated Jens Stoltenberg, loving each other yesterday in Vilnius for the NATO summit. And now this wonderful summit began with the news that Turkey has capitulated to the pressure put on it to permit Sweden to join NATO. So let me welcome Gevorg to the programme. And Gevorg, I'd be interested in your thoughts on what's been going on with Turkey and why they've decided to allow Sweden to join.
Well, greetings, Mike, and greetings to all our dear viewers. It's a pleasure to be with you again. And with this summit and Turkey's behavior prior to the summit, there's a lot really to be said, because right before the elections, there was a situation in Turkey where the rhetoric of the Turkish Minister of Interior was completely anti-American and full of almost hate speech towards the United States. He went on as far as saying that whoever produces anything towards the American interests in Turkey is a traitor to the nation and will have to be fought and will have to be eradicated from Turkey. And other statements like that were very prominent. But then suddenly this change happened, and when we see Turkey behaving very differently. That was pretty clear already during the elections and in the aftermath of the elections, that Erdoğan was going to start leaning pro-Western, because his appointments, especially at the key positions of the foreign minister, for instance, or the minister of finance, clearly showed that he was no longer going to pursue his anti-Western agenda as he used to. But now with the summit, we see that the change has been complete, and the direction that Turkey is taking is even a more rapid and strong towards the West than it used to be.
Okay, well, look, we'll come on to the detail of this in a second. Before we do, let's just reveal your secret location. Now, I have to admit that this would be my idea of hell, Alex and Gevorg, but just briefly tell us where you are.
We are in Durrës on the coast of Albania, and you might not believe it, but that is actually the view from the balcony behind us. Now, because of the camera not coping with this sunshine, it's white out behind us. But if we lean out of the picture for a couple of seconds, the camera will recover, and you will see the deep blue Adriatic waters from which we enjoyed some fresh grilled fish last night. More adverts for the Albanian Tourist Board to follow in extra time, but seriously, a very recommended country for a number of cultural reasons, where people treat each other very decently. But on to Gevorg's main segment here, because Gevorg is going to get into the nitty-gritty now of NATO, Russia and Turkey, Turkey being a neighbor of his and a particular focus. I would ask viewers not to despair at the amount of Russian text on the screen, because the very reason we've got Gevorg commenting now is because he's watching intelligent commentary coming from Russian sources and Russian language sources, which we don't get in the West. So with that, I'll hand over to Gevorg to set the scene.
All right. As we've started already discussing this situation with Turkey, I would like to say that, as I've said already, that prior to the elections, all of the rhetoric that Turkey has begun its elections and pre-election period with was radically anti-American and generally anti-Western. They were trying to build an alliance with Russia, or at least they've been presenting such an alliance as taking place. And that, of course, had to do with the gas trade deals that Turkey had with Russia, running the Russian gas through Azerbaijani pipelines and Georgia into Turkey.
We're going to run a clip silently in the background as Gevorg continues to speak, which will show some of the detail of this anti-American rhetoric.
Yes, this person on this clip, it is Süleyman Soylu, a man who was Turkish Minister for Interior. And here he says that it is our first opportunity to have caught the West in its weak point. We have caught out America for the first time in the last 100 years. And by the grace and mercy of Allah, he says, and we're in the strongest position as a country in the last 300 years. So with the help of democracy, or whichever thing they call democracy, well, they're going to become a different nation, a stronger nation, and they're now at a turning point of saving the world from oppression and the evil doings of the West. That's Süleyman Soylu right before the elections. And generally, the whole rhetoric was like that. It wasn't mild. It wasn't softly anti-Western. It was radical. However, this changed, and as we see with the summit, now Erdoğan says that there's a way to go with the United States, and I haven't seen any commentary from the American side yet on the talks between Erdoğan and Biden. There hasn't been a release from Blinken or anyone of importance. However, the elections in Turkey with the victory that Erdoğan's had, and many do call that elections rigged and quite difficult to accept to this day. However, the general understanding is that because Erdoğan is changing his position on the relations with the West, the Turkish society can live with that, and they'll actually let that pass, as it were.
You've got this quotation we'll bring up on screen now at the bottom. It's a Russian translation, but just to go through this quickly.
Yes, well, this says that, and that's again Soylu from the Interior, says Turkey has achieved a state or approached a line that whoever continues to advance an American-oriented policy in Turkey will be declared a traitor.
This is just how many months ago?
Well, just three months ago, really. That's.
And you had comment on this. Let's bring this on screen.
Right. So.
Yes, well, the comment that I made back then was that the pro-American policies that the Minister of Interior talked about, the actors of that, the proponents of those policies were, of course, the Democrats in Turkey, the Kurds, those who want to keep Turkey in NATO, who want a stable monetary policy, and so forth. And of course, the minorities. They are interested in democracy because that's a way for them to secure their rights in the country somehow. But what we see now is that the Turkish government is making a U-turn on their pro-Russian and anti-Western rhetoric. The interesting bit there was initially apparent when the Minister of Finance of Turkey was appointed someone called Mehmet Şimşek. And that person, first of all, he's very tightly connected with the IMF. And he's been rewarded by the IMF for being one of their exemplary members and proponents of their policies. And he's reversed. He was called in Turkey to reverse the entire monetary policy in the country, because we know that prior to these elections, Turkish lira started depreciating very, very rapidly because of the particular kinds of economic mechanisms that the Turks have employed. But now that has changed with the adoption of new IMF policies.
So we just showed two extracts of you commenting on Russian on Soylu being very anti-American at the time. But where does that take us to the Vilnius summit, which Mike will be covering in a moment?
Yes, well, the change now that we see now, also it's important to notice that it did bring about some Russian reaction and is going to it is going to impact the Russian-Turkish relations quite seriously, because the Russian, well, a member of the Federation Council in Russia has made already a statement about Turkey behaving in an unfriendly manner, and Turkey becoming, and he said, we say it for the first time, that Turkey is becoming an unfriendly state to us.
Meanwhile, at the Vilnius summit, here's a close-up. What struck you about this Biden-Erdoğan handshake?
Well, I don't know. Nothing struck me about this, but it reminded me of the Soviet gerontokratia, the rulership and the leadership of the elders, as it were. And in Brezhnev's periods, if you had a look at Politburo, they were all well in their 70s. And this is something that we're seeing now. Putin, Erdogan, Biden, all around. Macron's wife.
We have a couple of minutes left in the segment, but you just want to mention things to viewers here.
Well, yes, of course, there was a lot of pressure applied to Turkey for their change in policy, and here we see that one of the tools that was used is putting pressure on Erdogan's son Bilal, who's been accused of corruption, and that was made known in the press. Reuters writes about it. And of course, this could go further if Erdogan didn't comply with what was necessary.
And then the Turks stuck their oar into the Crimea.
They have. There was this very interesting meeting right prior to the summit in Vilnius, the meeting of Erdogan and Zelensky. And they have been discussing the relations between Turkey and Ukraine, where Erdogan has declared that his position of supporting Ukraine unilaterally was very dedicated and committed, and they've been supporting allegedly Ukraine for the whole time. And also, Erdogan has mentioned the right of the Crimean Tatars, who are Turkic people in Crimea currently occupied by Russia, their right of self-determination. Prior to that statement, he's made a statement about the territorial integrity of Ukraine. So basically what this shows is that Turkey is really looking forward to a role in the future status of Crimea and the status of the Crimean Tatars on the peninsula.
Yeah. Okay, well, look, thank you very much for that, Gevorg. We'll come on to that in more detail in Extra, but we're going to move on now to the rest of what was going on in